Have you ever wondered how Michael Jackson managed to pull off his legendary 45-degree lean without falling? In the iconic move, he tilted forward at a perfect angle and held the position, something a normal person can only do up to around 20 degrees before toppling over. So how was it possible? Most experts believe that Jackson used a clever mechanical trick built right into his shoes. During performances, a hidden peg or nail would rise from the stage floor, locking into a slot in his specially designed heels to anchor him in place. Whether this was real or fake, nobody knows for sure.
My rideshare driver locked the doors and drove straight past my street without a word. I'd had my face in my phone the whole ride. I looked up and didn't recognize anything outside. It was almost 2 in the morning. I'd left the bar alone and ordered a ride home. He hadn't said one word since I got in. The app said turn right for my house. He went left. The little car icon on my screen drifted off the blue line. I told him he missed the turn. He didn't answer. He just kept checking his mirror. I pulled the door handle. Locked. I pulled it again. Nothing. I texted my friend the plate and the make of the car. My hands were shaking too hard to get it right the first time. He sped up. He ran a red light. He took a turn so hard my shoulder hit the window. I started looking for somewhere to jump. Then he finally spoke, eyes still on the mirror. There's a black car that's been behind us since the bar. Same one. 3 turns now. I turned around. 2 headlights. Close. Matching every move we made. He said, get down. He cut into an alley, killed his lights, and rolled behind a dumpster. The black car shot past the mouth of the alley a second later, slowing, looking. We sat in the dark until it was gone. Then he drove me straight to a police station with the lights on. He told the officer he'd watched a man at the bar follow me out and get into that car. He'd locked my doors the second I sat down. I never even saw the guy. I'd been looking at my phone the whole night. He drove past my street on purpose. It was the only way to keep that car from finding out where I lived. A 5-time champion bet me his title in front of the whole town. Then he cheated to keep it. That's exactly how he lost it. His name was Big Mike, and he'd won our county chili cook-off 5 years straight. He had a leather vest with his own face printed on the back. When the sign-up sheet showed a 16-year-old in the lineup, me, he laughed so hard he had to sit down. He found me at my burner an hour before judging. Tell you what, he said, loud enough for the judges' table to hear. You beat me. I hand you this belt right now. You don't. You haul my coolers to my truck and quit wasting a real cook's slot. He stuck out his hand, and the whole tent was watching, so I shook it. I'd been making this chili since I was 10. My grandpa's recipe: smoked brisket, 3 dried peppers, a square of dark chocolate you can't taste but always notice. I had it exactly where I wanted it. I turned to grab my ladle. When I looked back, Big Mike was already walking away from my pot, wiping his hands on his jeans, way too pleased with himself. He'd emptied a jar of ghost pepper extract into my chili, enough to strip paint. He didn't even hide it. Oops, he said. Spills happen, kid. I tasted it and my eyes watered on the first spoonful. 10 years of my grandpa's recipe, gone in one pour, and no time to start over. Mike was already telling his buddies the babysitter slot had been a mistake. Judging started. The judges worked down the line. Polite nods, small bites. Then they got to mine. The lead judge had been tasting cook-off chili for 30 years. She took 1 spoonful and went still. She took another. Then she waved the other 2 over and pointed at my cup. This, she said into the mic, is the first chili in years that actually scared me, and I can't stop eating it. Big Mike's face fell into his chest. They scored it first. Heat and flavor both. A panel of Texas chili judges does not punish a man for too much fire. The ghost pepper Mike poured in to bury me was the exact thing that buried him. He had to unbuckle the belt from his own waist and hand it to a 16-year-old in front of the whole tent. I shook his hand again when he did. Thanks for the secret ingredient. My house has a creaky step, and everyone in my family knows to skip it. One night my parents went out and left me home alone. I was watching TV downstairs. At 9:47 the step creaked. I muted the TV. Nobody was supposed to be home. Another creak. Slower this time. Someone was coming down the stairs. I didn't run. I grabbed my phone and ducked behind the kitchen counter. I called the police and whispered our address. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. I peeked around the counter. A man in torn clothes, mud on his shoes, moving toward the back door. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could reach, an iron cooking pan. He opened the back door. I swung. He went down. I sat on his legs and pinned his arm with my knee until I heard sirens. Police burst through the front door 30 seconds later. They cuffed him on our kitchen floor. He radioed it in. 2 minutes later, his radio crackled back. He escaped from a transport van 11 miles away that afternoon. He was wanted in 18 different countries for different crimes. He'd been hiding in our attic since before my parents even left, waiting for the house to go quiet. The news came the next morning. They wanted to interview me. I said no. I just wanted breakfast. I was the only customer in the grocery store at midnight, except for the man who kept watching me from around the corner of every aisle. Every time I looked up, he was at the end of the row, half hidden, staring. Every time I looked away and back, he was gone. I pretended not to notice. I'd read that if someone is following you, you don't run and you don't let them know you've seen them. You stay calm and you stay where people can see you. So I kept my pace normal and steered toward the front of the store, toward the registers and the cameras. He followed. Cereal aisle, frozen aisle, always 1 row over, pacing me. My heart was slamming, but I kept my face bored, like I was just deciding between 2 brands. I grabbed things I didn't need, so I'd look like a shopper and not like prey. By the dairy case, I caught his reflection in the freezer glass, close behind me. I held my breath and didn't turn around. That was when I noticed he wasn't looking at me. His eyes were tracking past me, down the aisle, at someone else. I turned just enough to follow them. There was a second man, closer to me than he was, matching every aisle I'd walked. 1 step back. He'd been there since I came in. I'd walked right past him to grab a cart. I'd spent 20 minutes watching the wrong man. The one from around the corner wasn't hiding from me. He was staying between me and the other one. When I sped up toward the registers, he sped up too, and put himself in the gap. 2 police officers were already waiting at the front of the store. They walked the second man out in cuffs, while I stood at the register, shaking. There was a man following us through the woods, and he stopped walking every time we stopped. We weren't on a trail, we'd cut off the path to save 10 minutes back to the car. Out there, nobody would have heard us. It was me and my little brother. I noticed the man when my brother dropped his water bottle, and we turned around. He was 100 feet back, between the trees, still, watching. We started walking again. So did he. I told my brother to speed up. The man sped up. I cut us hard to the right, toward where I thought the car was. The man cut the same way, never closer, never farther. We ran. Branches tore at us. My brother fell, and I dragged him up. When I looked back, the man still wasn't running. He was walking, and he was closer. That's when I understood. Every time we ran from him, we went deeper into the woods, away from the road. He wasn't chasing us, he was steering us. So I stopped running away from him. I grabbed my brother and cut straight back toward the man, then past him, toward a sound I'd been hearing for a while. Cars. He reached for my brother as we passed and got a fistful of his backpack. My brother twisted out of the straps and left it in his hands. We came out of the trees onto the shoulder of a county road, right in front of a truck. It slammed on its brakes. The man stopped at the edge of the woods, looked at the road, and stepped back into the trees. A sheriff's deputy walked those woods that afternoon. He found a folding chair set up in the brush, facing our shortcut, a cooler, and 4 backpacks that weren't ours, in 4 different sizes. My brother never got his backpack back. A woman I'd never seen knocked on our door and called me by my name. She said my mom sent her to take us, and that we had to leave right now. It was 3:15. My little sister and I had been home alone for 15 minutes. The bus dropped us at the corner like every day. The door had barely locked behind us when she knocked. Through the glass, she held up a set of car keys and smiled. She said there'd been an accident, and Mom was at the hospital asking for us. She said there was no time to call anyone. We had to go with her now. She knew my name. She knew my mom's name. She knew we walked home at 3. I looked past her for an ambulance, or my mom's car, or anything. The driveway was empty, except for a car I'd never seen. My hand was already on the deadbolt. She said to hurry. My mom told her to grab me and my little brother and come straight there. I have a sister. She was standing right behind me. I pulled her by the wrist behind my leg and kept the door shut. I asked which hospital. She named 1 2 towns over and told me to stop asking questions and open the door. I told her okay. Let me grab my brother. Her face lit up. She nodded fast. Her hand went to the handle before I even moved. I turned the deadbolt the other way and stepped back from the glass. She stopped smiling. She tried the handle. Then she knocked harder and said my mom's name again, louder. I called my mom. She picked up from her desk at work. She'd never heard of this woman. By the time I looked back, the porch was empty. A woman I'd never seen was pounding on my front door at 2 a.m., screaming that she'd been kidnapped and needed to get inside. I opened it without thinking. She was barefoot, shaking, her wrists red like she'd been tied. She pushed past me into the hallway and told me to turn off every light. She said 2 men had taken her, that she'd escaped, and that they were minutes behind her. Her eyes kept going to the window, not to me. I did everything she asked. I killed the lights. I kept my voice down. She pulled the phone out of my hand and said they could trace a call. She slid it into her own pocket. She moved through my house like she already knew where the back door was. Then headlights swept across my living room wall. 2 cars rolled slowly into my driveway. Then a third behind them. Doors opened. I counted 4 men stepping out into the dark. I was sure those were the men she'd run from, and they'd followed her to my house. She grabbed my arm and pulled me back, away from the windows, into the hallway. I reached for my phone in her pocket. She caught my wrist and wouldn't let go. Outside, a voice came over a loudspeaker. It said a name I'd never heard. It was hers. It said to come out of the house with our hands where they could see them. It told whoever was inside that the woman with them was armed, and not who she said she was. I turned to look at her. She wasn't watching the door anymore. She was watching me. I looked at my front door. She'd thrown the bolt. My lights. She'd turned them off. My phone. She'd taken it. She hadn't done any of it to keep those men out. She'd done it to keep me in here with her. She told me she'd been kidnapped. She left out that she was the one who does the kidnapping. The men in my driveway were the police, and I just locked my own front door against the only people who could help me. A woman across from me on the late-night subway stared at me without blinking, and the 2 old men beside her were holding her down in her seat. I told myself she was sick, and they were just keeping her steady, but she never once looked at them. She only looked at me. Every time I glanced away and back, she had slid an inch closer to the edge of her seat. The old men's knuckles were white where they gripped her arms. She didn't blink. Her chest never rose. When the car rocked, everyone swayed but her. The 2 men stared straight ahead, jaws clenched, like they were bracing against something heavy. I got up and moved to a seat farther down the car. Her head turned and followed me, slow, eyes locked on mine. The men shuffled down the bench with her, still holding on, still pulling her back. At the next stop, a tall man in a long coat stepped on. He didn't look for an empty seat. He came straight over and sat down beside me. The woman didn't even glance at him. She just stared at me and leaned harder into their hands. The man in the coat spoke without turning his head. He said, "Whatever you do, don't look her in the eyes again." I asked him what was happening. He didn't answer. He just watched her. As the train slowed for the next stop, her mouth began to open. Both old men half stood, straining now, all 4 hands clamped on her arms. The door slid open, and the man grabbed my wrist and hauled me out onto the platform. I landed on the concrete and started screaming that I'd been kidnapped. He pointed back through the open doors and told me to look. He said, "Calm down. I just saved your life." He said that woman had been dead since 3 stops ago. He said the 2 men were the only thing holding her back from me. The doors slid shut, and the train began to pull away. Through the glass, the woman was finally standing up, and the 2 old men were nowhere on the car.